In 1952, there was a crisis in Grand Prix racing. Alfa Romeo retired while they were on top. That left Ferrari and the unreliable BRM as Formula One contenders. Race organisers decided that Formula 2 offered more entertainment, so by default it became the World Championship formula. Nino Farina and Juan Manuel Fangio had to find new teams. Fangio signed up with his fellow countryman Gonzalez to drive for Maserati. Farina made the move to Ferrari. This was not entirely to his liking, because he was number 2 to Alberto Ascari. Sports car racing looked forward to the return of a revived Mercedes, ready to take on Jaguar, Ferrari and Talbot at Le Mans. The traditional season opening event was the Monte Carlo Rally.
From Plythwood Square, Glasgow, 69 British cars entered in the Monte Carlo Rally begin their 2,000-mile run. Here's the Sunbeam Talbot women's team for the Coupe des Dames. Prepared for trouble too, from the looks of it. The Lord Provost sets them off and the long run begins. They're all stock cars and face a stiff speed schedule on the roundabout route that ends at Monte. At Folkestone, the Dinar loads the 69 cars, all but one of which got through without loss of marks. Before loading, all face a last check. Mr. Ground gets busy, whilst nearby his wife hopes this will be the closest shave he'll have. In the 40 years of the rally, Britain has won only twice. But first to reach Monte Carlo was Beckhardt in a British Jaguar Jupiter.
The first major race meeting of the year was Goodwood at Easter. A young driver making a name for himself was bow-tie-wearing Mike Hawthorn. A nitromethane fuel brew helped power his Cooper Bristol to the Levant Cup.
Chief event of the day, the Richmond Trophy race, brought out the Grand Prix cars in a 12-lap race. Argentinian Jose Gonzalez soon went into the lead, and there he stayed, despite a fine effort by the new British discovery, Mike Hawthorn, who finished second. Bob Gerard, number 6, showed he lost none of his skill, especially when cornering. But Gonzalez, in a Ferrari, number 50, established a new lap record of 90 miles an hour for the altered course, gaining yet another brilliant victory.
Hawthorn finished a competitive second to Gonzalez.
The Daily Express International Trophy race at Silverstone sees our Formula 2 cars being prepared to give their last ounce of speed to determined British drivers now meeting continental aces on really even terms. The flag falls and off they go, racing cars that will, in 1954, be the standard class in every international Grand Prix. An early race duel was between number 29, Peter Collins, one of the HWM team, and number 12, Alan Brown, in a Bristol-engine Cooper. Prince Bera, number 25, overtakes Belgium's champion, Johnny Klaas. The veteran German champion, Paul Pietsch, is yet another ace driver in this fierce overseas challenge. After winning the first heat, Mike Hawthorn, number 11, lost many laps through a broken gear lever. But though, after repairs, he passed car after car, the handicap proved too great. Home hopes soared when number 32, Tony Roth, was seen in second place, just behind his teammate Lance Macklin, number 31. And there they stayed, first and second. And it's a real flag day for Britain, as Lance Macklin is flagged home, winner of his first major event. So well done, Macklin and Roth, and the Racing Drivers Club too, who, in the words of their President-in-Chief, the Duke of Edinburgh, had furthered the prestige of British motor cars.
The World Championship began in Switzerland.
Bern, where on the Bremgarten circuit, 21 cars left the starting grid in the Swiss Grand Prix. But later, in a sports car event, came disaster. Rudolf Caracciola, a Swiss veteran, had crashed into a tree but escaped with a broken leg. Only 8 cars finished the grueling Grand Prix course, won by Piero Taruffi of Italy, driving a Ferrari.
Taruffi won when early leader Farina retired after 17 laps with a broken magneto. The Swiss Grand Prix clashed with the Indianapolis 500. Ferrari sent Alberto Ascari with a special 375. He was running 8th when he spun off after a wheel collapsed. Troy Ruttman won the race, and the European challenge would have to wait a few more years. The Monaco Grand Prix in 1952 was for sports cars and had a good entry from Aston Martin, Allard, Jaguar, Ferrari and Gordini. Aston Martin's Reg Parnell was the first to hit trouble when on lap 18 a conrod came through the side of his engine and he spun on his own oil at Sainte-Devote. It caused a huge accident involving half of the field, including race leader Stirling Moss in a C-Type and Jean Berra's Gordini. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries in the crash. Sadly though, practicing for a support race, former Alfa Romeo Grand Prix driver Luigi Fagioli crashed and passed away 3 weeks later as a result of his injuries. Ferrari's Vittorio Mazzotto avoided the drama and won the Monaco Grand Prix. Monaco didn't return as a racing circuit until 1955. While the World Championship was now for Formula 2 cars with 2-litre unsupercharged engines, there were still races run to the Formula 1 regulations. BRM signed Juan Manuel Fangio and Stirling Moss for a season of non-championship events. The Ulster Trophy was on the fearsome Dundrod Road circuit. Moss stalled on the line and Fangio spun on lap 1. Fangio was due to race the following day at Monza. Moss retired with transmission trouble, followed by Fangio soon after. Piero Taruffi, a noted engineer and former bike racer, scored a convincing win in the thin-wall special Ferrari from Mike Hawthorn and Ireland's Joe Kelly. Fangio arranged with Prince Bira to fly direct from Northern Ireland to Milan in Bira's private plane. Unfortunately, Bira flew to Italy earlier than planned, leaving Fangio with no transport. He flew to London and then Paris, only to discover that flights to Italy had been suspended due to bad weather. So he drove in a borrowed car to Milan overnight, before the days of motorways. He arrived, exhausted, at Monza at 2 p.m. The race was starting at 2:30. This was the debut of the new Maserati Grand Prix car, the 2-litre A6 GCM driven by Fangio and Froilan Gonzalez.
Il super teleobiettivo rallentando la corsa dei bolidi ci permette di analizzare queste prime fasi.
Ferrari had Alberto Ascari, Nino Farina and Piero Taruffi in the 500 with its Aurelio Lampredi-designed twin-plug 2-litre 4-cylinder engine. This was installed in a Formula 2 chassis with new De Dion rear suspension. Fangio started from the back of the grid, but overtook 6 cars on the first lap. Out front, Ferraris led the way. From 1952, the wearing of crash helmets had been made compulsory, and Farina was now sporting a distinctive white helmet.
Da questo momento si inizia il duello tra il 22 e il 20, Ascari e Farina, che si concluderà con netto vantaggio di Ascari al traguardo della prima prova.
In his efforts to make up time, Fangio crashed at the fast Lesmo curve on lap 2 and was thrown out of the Maserati and into the trees. The helmet helped save Fangio's life. He was taken to hospital on the back of a lorry and treated for concussion and injuries to the vertebrae in his neck. Luigi Villaresi with the stopwatches. As Alberto Ascari slows down on his return to the pits, the Ferrari suffering a rare mechanical failure. After 3 weeks, Fangio came out of hospital with a plaster cast covering his torso, shoulders and neck. Ascari walks into retirement. Fangio recovered from serious headaches before he returned to racing later in the year.
Il francese Simon ha più di un minuto di distacco e poi anche lui è uno della Ferrari. Si classificherà secondo.
Veteran Felice Bonetto shows the exertions of driving his Maserati.
Ma al 29esimo giro anche per lui è finita. Una sudata fatica senza premio, ma una prova di abilità che si
The
iscrive.
winner, Nino Farina, still a competitive force at the top level.
Rispettato il pronostico, anche se il vincitore non si chiami Ascari ma Farina. La grande vincitrice è la Ferrari. Quando si posseggono piloti come Ascari, Farina, Taruffi e Villoresi, l'unica sorpresa è che non vinca l'uno ma l'altro. Sono 4 assi, il più bel poker che l'automobilismo abbia mai espresso.
At Le Mans, Jaguar was ready to defend their title. Mercedes were into the third race of their sports car program, and Talbot had their converted Formula One cars. Jaguar had made hasty modifications to the nose of the C-Type in an effort to run at higher speeds. Stirling Moss had seen the performance of the new Mercedes 300 SLs in the Mille Miglia and pressed for changes to be made. The new nose shape couldn't be tested until the race itself. Jaguar did set the early pace, but the streamlined nose and the lack of airflow caused overheating and their early retirement. Another of the Jaguars had a mechanical breakdown. Stirling Moss was unhappy. Team management decided to let everyone think that overheating problems had caused the retirements. Tony Rolt climbs from his car and Ian Stewart looks despondent. With the Jaguars pushed away, the race became a battle between one Frenchman and Mercedes. The one man, Pierre Levegh. Levegh was driving the 4.5-litre Talbot with fully enclosed bodywork. Alfred Neubauer was presiding over the 3-car Mercedes team. Cunningham was back with the C4R, 2 open cars and 1 coupe. Into the twilight at Le Mans. Mercedes planned to have veteran Rudolf Caracciola drive, but he was injured in the sports car race at the Swiss Grand Prix meeting, ending his career. The Mercedes of Hans Klenk and Karl Kling retired with a dynamo failure. Through the night and into the morning, Pierre Levegh continued to lead in the number 8 Talbot. In the number 20 Mercedes, Theo Helfrich and Helmut Niedermeyer were third. Incredibly, during the race, Pierre Levegh decided to complete the entire 24 hours on his own and not let René Marchand drive at all. In number 21, pre-war ace Hermann Lang with Fritz Reiss. Aston Martin had trouble, embarrassingly, with the David Brown-built hypoid rear axle unit. First to retire was the Parnell Thompson car with a seized rear axle, then the Griffiths Poor car. The Collins Macklin entry lasted the longest, running for over 20 hours and lying just behind the 2 Mercedes 300 SLs until it, too, suffered rear axle failure. It was in the final hours of the race that Pierre Levegh's tiredness began to show. He climbs from the car exhausted. In spite of his team's pleading, he refused to let René Marchand take over. Levegh knew that the Talbot's engine was fragile and might blow up if Marchand drove. But with less than an hour of the race to go, Levegh selected second gear instead of fourth, and it was all over, a blown engine. A distraught Levegh comes back to the pits. He retired after leading for 23 hours. The Mercedes were 4 laps behind when Levegh stopped. Hermann Lang and Fritz Ries took victory. Theo Helfrich and Helmut Niedermeyer were second, and third were Leslie Johnson and Tommy Wisdom in a Nash Healey. Briggs Cunningham drove for 20 hours and Bill Spears 4 hours to finish fourth. It was a low-key triumph for the driving, engineering and organisational skills that Mercedes brought to their racing. The sad postscript to this race was that Mercedes invited Pierre Levegh to drive for them in 1955, with tragic consequences. Alberto Ascari was determined to make up lost championship points and dominated the Belgian and French Grand Prix. Nino Farina was unable to challenge and had to settle for second place in both races. The British Grand Prix was well established at Silverstone. Farina managed to beat Ascari to pole position. The change to Formula 2 regulations gave the chance for smaller British teams like Cooper, HWM, Connaught and ERA to enter major races. It was a real boost for British drivers hoping to make their way in Grand Prix racing. At the fall of the Union flag, Ascari made one of his lightning starts and immediately pulled away. From second place, Farina had to pit for a plug change and dropped back, allowing Ascari to win again, his third in a row. Piero Taruffi was second and Farina sixth. Mike Hawthorn was third in a Cooper Bristol, another impressive result that helped earn him a seat with Ferrari in 1953. Supporting the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring were two sports car races. Ferdinand Porsche, designer of the Auto Union P-Wagen and the Volkswagen, began producing sports cars under his own name after the war. By 1952, Porsches made up half the grid for the small-capacity sports car race. One of their rivals was EMW from East Germany. Max Nathan, driving a Porsche 356, was the winner. Everyone was waiting for the battle between Hermann Lang and Karl Kling in the second sports car race for bigger capacity cars. All eyes were on Mercedes celebrating their Le Mans victory with two open-top versions of the 300 SL. French opposition came from Gordini. There was a special determination about the driving of Hermann Lang, while Kling didn't give up easily, leading for a number of laps. Because the track doubled back just after the pits, team managers were able to pass on up-to-date lap times to the drivers. On this occasion, Neubauer decided that pit signals were redundant. A Ferrari spun out, while the Mercedes fought it out around the circuit, using every centimetre of the road. Hermann Lang fended off the challenge from Karl Kling to take victory. At the end of the year, Mercedes travelled to Mexico to race in the third Carrera Panamericana, a high-speed road race in the Mille Miglia tradition. After 19 hours, Karl Kling and Hans Klenk emerged victorious, and the sports car racing program was closed down. Mercedes now had Grand Prix racing in their sights. The main race of the day was the 1952 German Grand Prix. Alberto Ascari knew that Nino Farina would continue to be his strongest rival. A spin by Felice Bernetto's Maserati caused Paul Pietsch and Maurice Trintignant to take evasive action.
And now Farina in the lead, Ascari sitting on his tail.
The Ferrari 500 was the car to beat. The HWMs and Gordinis had trouble keeping up. Even Piero Taruffi's Ferrari wilted under the pace set by Alberto Ascari. Ascari pitted for oil, which let Farina into the lead, but Ascari repassed him within the lap and went on to win the race. Robert Mazon's Gordini was fourth until a wheel fell off. Felice Bernetto looks on as Ascari flicks the Ferrari through the final corner to take victory. Behind him, a trio of Ferraris: Farina, Rudi Fischer and Taruffi. Goodwood in England introduced a 9-hour sports car race.
30 ace drivers in Goodwood's News of the World International Car Race, and the first away was a Jaguar, number 1, driven by Sterling Moss. A 9-hour event, this was Britain's first after-dark race, with fame waiting at midnight for the winners. Yes, skids were frequent, but car number 37 was lucky. It continued the race. Because of the strain imposed by the testing track, no driver was allowed to race for more than 2 hours, so there were frequent pit stops for petrol, repairs, and a change of driver. Reg Fennell's Aston Martin, number 15, was burning up the track. Then it burned up in the pits when over-eagerness to save seconds in refueling caused petrol to flow out of the tank. And the race continued far into the night. Another of the Aston Martin team was the winner, covering 680 miles and driven by Peter Collins and PwC Griffiths.
Alberto Ascari kept his winning streak going. He won the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort from Farina, and finally the Italian race at Monza from Gonzalez in the Maserati. Alberto Ascari won the 1952 World Championship and set a new record of 6 consecutive victories. His best 4 results gave him 34 points. Nino Farina was second with 24 in a year of Ferrari domination. A stretch of motorway at Jobec in Belgium, used by manufacturers to test the high-speed performance of their cars. With a Sports Car World Championship announced for 1953, Jaguar wanted to make sure they were well prepared for the new racing year.